warning, you're going to have an immediate reaction. It's going to be, how do I get my pennies back? And you want to resist that. You want to have a more open mind. And Judith, when they do that and they have that more open mind, we hope, what's next?
Now, one of the other things we look at when we do this, and maybe this is the next step, let's see. So, so many people have automatic deductions of things that they don't even know they have anymore. They signed up for something. It might be a gym membership they haven't used in a year. They just don't pay attention. You know what? I've seen things where people are paying $30 a month for AOL services, and they just didn't notice it. And it's not only, it could be any age.
Welcome to Rich in Relationship. And today we're talking about finances. How do you organize your finances? How do you get them together so that if you have a dream, you can start to line up the way you're managing your money or how much money you'd like to bring in with the future that you'd like to create? And we're talking to an expert today. Judy Heft has been working for more than 26 years with people. She is a financial and lifestyle concierge, which means she knows all the right people and all the right places to hook you up once you have a financial vision. She's also the author of How to Be Smart, Successful, and Organized with Your Money. Welcome to the show, Judith. How are you?
I'm great, Rich. Thank you. It's so nice to be here with you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you virtually. This is like the last few years of my life. I've been meeting people virtually, and it's been so cool.
And fun too.
Hey, so the first question I ask people on the show is, how did your heart or your passion lead you into doing this work?
That's a great question, Rich. I grew up, actually, let me just say, I grew up in the family business, in the retail business, and I learned how to take care of people, at a young age and learn how to be a businesswoman. And my passion is really, I started this business primarily working with the senior population, which I call the 80 to 100 plus age group. And I was close to my grandparents as a young child, I think, and that kind of helped me. But I love listening to them. They have a million stories, but when it's your own mother, father, grandparent, sometimes you get a little bored with that and say, that's enough. I heard that 42 times. But I had that patience and I loved listening and helping. And I still have a passion for helping people today.
Sweet. I love it. I really love it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So the topic today is, we're kind of trying to zero in on a topic, Judith and I'm really excited about what people need to do to get their finances in alignment with their dreams, because I actually do a lot of work with people, helping them figure out what their dreams are. Like my experience here working with couples, for example, is that when one person's a little out of sync with what they want, or both people aren't sure what they want, they start to really question their relationship. And it's statistically shown that 76% could be helpful to have that percentage. 76% of all couples fight about money. So this is a really central issue. And 40% of all marriages are divorces are driven by financial dispute. Not marriages, but divorces are driven by financial dispute. Whew, deep breath. And so you're really a key person in the life of people in relationship. And I'm curious, when you work with people on their finances, kind of what's the starting point for you?
Just figure out where they want to be in life, what their dreams are, what their passions are, what their lifestyle is going to be, so we can help them create a spending plan. I like to say spending plan. I like it. It's nicer than budget. It's not as intimidating. So we try to help our clients, create a spending plan so they know what they need to plan for the future. And one of the things that you said really resonated with me. Well, two of the things you mentioned, marriage and money, fighting and divorce. 40% of all divorces, are problems with money. And when I first got married, one of the things my sister said to me is, you guys are only going to fight over money and kids. So I was like, no, we're hippies. We're not going to fight over anything. Well, money was a big problem, and kids, too. So that money issues, we just, never were able to sit down at the table and have a business meeting. I think running a household is like running a small business, and you really need to know your numbers no matter what. If you have a lot of money or little money, you need to understand them.
Yeah, what's amazing is that so many people run their business the way they run their households.
That's very true. That is so true.
I am an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, been in a lot of different kinds of businesses. And I remember the aha moment when somebody said, you could plan your business's growth. you could monitor where you're spending your money. You could figure out how to more effectively use the dollars that are coming into the business to create more dollars coming into the business, and that was sort of like, what, really? And I always did everything by the seat of my pants. And that moment was pivotal for me as a business person and at home. So typically, what are the kinds of things that get in the way of people being organized about their finances?
I think the most important thing is communication, especially if they're in a relationship with somebody else. You need to both be on the same page. You need to sit down and have meetings. Same with your business. You need to have meetings with your business team. I actually, in the beginning, well, before I started this business, I was in the retail business, family business, and I ran that business by the seat of my pants. In the beginning of this business, I ran it by the seat of my pants. My marriage, the finances were run by the seat of our pants. And it just doesn't work that way. You can't get ahead. It was, for me, it was also an aha moment of like, how am I going to make this, how am I going to grow here? How can I grow this business and still have the lifestyle that I want and be working on the business, not in the business? Well, in order to do that, I have to plan my numbers. I have to know what's coming in and make projections. So I have to know what's going out into each different category. And the same for business as personal. You need to know that stuff. It's important.
Okay, so I love the topic of communication. We punch this a lot with people, that there's a difference between having caring communication. Caring communication is a piece of intimacy. Caring communication isn't just for relationships, though. It's in your business as well. There's a whole model for leadership in business now, which is about being in service, being a servant-led leader, like a servant-oriented leader, where you're making sure that everyone on your team inside the company is winning, as well as all the clients are winning. It's a really interesting approach to business. And communication is so central in that. So what kind of communication would you recommend around a spending plan, around finances, around planning lifestyle for couples?
The first thing you have to know is, you have to take a look at maybe your last 6 months. A year would be good, 6 months, and figure out, what am I spending on what? What are my expenses? What are my fixed expenses? And then what are my variable expenses? And then sit down and really take a look at them. I think today, with so many people swiping credit cards, or now we're all at home, we're just punching those numbers in, or we're using Apple Pay if we go out, we're not paying attention. We're not, so many people don't even reconcile their checking accounts. And so they just really don't know. They trust the banks, they trust the credit cards. And, banks and credit cards make mistakes just like everybody else. They're human people doing the work. So you just need to have better understanding and pay attention. I check my accounts daily. Every morning I go online to make sure everything's on the up and up.
A client of mine had an experience recently where they didn't realize that they had like a $5,000 buffer on their checking account. So every time the checking out was over, it was like a credit that the bank, a credit account. Bank gave them $5,000 they could draw on when their checking account was overdrawn. And they didn't realize that when they'd gone to the bank, they had signed this. Like, they just go to the bank and push the papers in front of them. The banker probably told them, but you're signing 500 papers, got right by them. And what happened was, over the course of a year, maybe a year and a half, they had drawn on that $5,000, and they didn't know it. They probably got notifications and didn't see it, is probably the truth. They said, I got no notifications. So they said, the bank didn't tell me anything. But banks generally don't operate that way. They get something out in front of you, but it might be organized in a way where you might not realize what they're saying, especially if you're unconscious that you have this. And lo and behold, after a year and a half, they hit the limit. And the bank then turned the $5,000 over to be collected. Their credit rating went down. Then the bank decided, because it was the middle of the pandemic, that they were going to write off half of it. So they wrote off with it. And the client says that the bank never notified them of any of this, which I guess is possible. I don't know. I'm not in there. But the bank wrote off $2,500 of it, and it banged their credit rating, which is something they had been working on aggressively to increase. And so now they were really awake. And so, that's just an example of how, when it comes to dealing with banks, if you're not really paying attention, things can get by you. And I don't know how much of this was the bank and how much of this is the client, because I didn't ever see the actual documents. I just have their story.
Yeah, because there's all those little teeny tiny check marks that you don't see, and you check them or you initial them, and you're not really paying attention because you just want to get everything organized. It's so important to read.
This client's MO is to just check the balance and see if they need to put money in that account.
Right.
That's all they really did, and they never looked. I would guess they never explored. You know, when you go online now, there's 52 different buttons where you can look at and see what's going on with all the stuff you have going on. Or if you haven't asked to have that stuff included in your online report, like I've got multiple accounts, but if I don't request that those accounts be available when I go online for my business account, if I don't ask that my personal accounts be viewable also, I won't ever see them. I have to log into them separately. And so it's fully possible. You could have a $5,000 line of credit. That was the word I couldn't find, that the bank signed you up for. And if you haven't asked for it to be viewed when you go to look at your account, you'll never see it and never know. So you've got to be really almost litigiously meticulous about what you're viewing and how you manage this stuff today.
That's very true.
Because it's so easy to look at those bank balances, I think it's even easier to say, why bother to check my checkbook? If there's money in there or there isn't. All right. Exactly. So anyway, I digress. Long discussion. I apologize. So let's get back to Judy Heft and what you do. So you help people. First, you said you need to look at 6 months. And folks, I did this. I took a year and I downloaded it and I spreadsheet it. It was a real pain in the neck. If I had just gotten QuickBooks, it could have all downloaded in there automatically, and I could have segregated it easier, but I'm a bonehead. I wasn't going to pay for it. So I sat there and on a spreadsheet segregated it all. And I'm going to warn you that the first thing you're going to do is go, like, I'm spending this much eating out. I'm spending this much, or he is spending this much at that store. And your first reaction is going to be sort of shock. And then when you think about it, you're going to go, you know what? That looks like a lot of money, but as a percentage of what we spend, it might not be so bad. So I encourage you to look at it and think about, as a percentage of what you're spending, is it really reasonable? Is it really, it might be totally reasonable to spend a few $1,000s eating out over the course of 6 months or a year if you're a big family. And it might be necessary if you're both working just to get yourself some space. All right, so that's my warning. When you do this, warning, you're going to have an immediate reaction. It's going to be, how do I get my pennies back? And you want to resist that. You want to have a more open mind. And Judith, when they do that and they have that more open mind, we hope, what's next?
One of the other things we look at when we do this, and maybe this is the next step, let's see. So, so many people have automatic deductions of things that they don't even know they have anymore. They signed up for something. It might be a gym membership they haven't used in a year. They just don't pay attention. You know what? I've seen things where people are paying $30 a month for AOL services, and they just didn't notice it. And it's not only, it could be any age, young people or their kids. I had an instance once where a teenager was paying for these games on iTunes. They didn't know they were paying. They just kept clicking, game, whatever it was, the app, and then it was thousands of dollars in 1 month. So
we had a child who racked up $1,000 downloading music, and he just didn't realize it, and we wanted to kill him.
Yeah, well, I've seen that. So, there's lots of things that we take a look at. We do a little forensic bookkeeping and help our clients, just really know, is this important? Do you need this? Are you still using this membership? Whatever the case may be. And then we kind of sit down together with them and come up with a nice spending plan that seems reasonable. I don't want to tell somebody you can't be spending, X amount of dollars on clothes. You got to cut back, but we'll help them figure it out and see where their priorities are, which priorities are different for everybody, of course.
Yeah, and I've heard people who help people with their lifestyle in terms of the clothing. They help people make. You might want to bring someone like that. If you're spending a lot on clothes, you bring someone like that in, and they'll help you go through your closet and figure out, what are you using? What are you not using? They might help you make some rules about, before, if you're going to buy something, you're going to have to get rid of something instead of just having it accumulate. So you only have clothing you're actually using, et cetera. But that's not what Judith is about. But that is a way to start monitoring, to become aware, right? And I think that your point is, we get so unconscious about what we spend.
Awareness is the first step. Absolutely. You have to be aware of what you're doing, what you're spending, and then you have to accept that that's what it is and figure out, where can I cut back without depriving myself? But we don't want to have people feel deprived.
So this is a lot like 5S in the Toyota system. We love to, 5S is like sort, set in order, And the first part of sorting is you get rid of the, like, you got to get rid of the junk, you know? And so you're getting rid of the financial junk. Oh my God, we're both paying for an Amazon Prime membership. Let's get rid of that. We get rid of that. This might be more question. We both have platinum cards. You may both want to have separate platinum cards, or should we put them together? You know, and it depends on what you get or don't get.
Separate.
I'm sorry?
From separate.
Keep them separate. Okay. Judy says keep them separate. Thank you. I needed help with that. And we have them separate so far. But, you know, there's all kinds of decisions that you're going to make about, is it really worth, number one, are we paying for things that we don't know we're paying for that we don't really need? Number two, are we duplicate paying for things? And number three, then I guess you would start to look at what you're actually spending. All right, so you're at this point where you've got awareness, you've been sorting and setting in order and shining and all that good stuff that comes with, you know, with organizing any business or your life or whatever. What's next, Judith?
The next thing we have to do is like track everything starting now. Like, you know, after, okay, we came out, we eliminated, we got rid of the things that we don't want, that we're not using. And then we have to really take a look at what we are spending and try to, you know, come up with a budget going forward, a spending plan. So spending plan. I stuck the word budget in there.
We were talking about that before the show. And obviously, well, not obviously, maybe not so obvious. The different budget to me feels like I'm keeping the money for me, which, you know, when you die isn't going to do you any good. And spending plan is more reasonable. It's like, where am I going to invest what I'm earning into my family, into my future, into a sense of financial freedom when I get to an age where maybe I'm not as productive as I once was.
It's also really important once we figure that out and what you need and what your income is. And, you know, if you're managing to save, you want to be putting money away, you need that 6-month emergency plan. Then I think it's time to start talking to a financial advisor, which I'm not. You know, we do the bookkeeping and the money mindset and the helping people to create that spending plan. But you need to speak to a financial advisor so you know, like, what you want to be investing in. You know, what are the best things for you to, where are the best places to put your money these days?
And so
it changes every day anyway.
Let's say a client walks into your door, and I bet you this is not unusual, even what I'm going to propose to you. Like, I'm just thinking about where I was before I had my wake-up call about finances. They walk into your business, and not only have they not been looking at what they've been spending, but they might even have a bunch of credit cards. They might not realize that, you know, one card is 25% interest, one card is 10% interest, and they've been paying the bare minimum on that. How do you propose they move from that state to the one you were just talking about, which is where you've got a 3-month or 6-month or a year's safety budget, safety spending plan budget, whatever. You've got a safety nest so that when, if you lose your job, you have time to look for a new job or whatever crisis might come up. How do you move from, I'm so unconscious and I don't even know that I'm spending so much in interest that I don't need to be, to being in that place where you're future thinking and you're not paying all that interest and you're actually putting money away for an emergency?
Emergency fund, it's called. Your emergency fund. Yeah. No, so that's the next thing we do. We'll take a look at all the different credit cards and we'll figure out if they're not paying them off every month, which, you know, I'd highly recommend. Don't charge it if you can't afford it. When my sister was a little girl and she wanted to buy something, my mother might have said we couldn't afford it. She said, just write a check, you know. So I think that's a little bit of a mindset for some people. But anyway, now it's just use a credit card. But so that's the thing that we do. So we take a look at the highest interest rate and we're going to pay that one off. And then we'll go down to the next one and we'll just keep paying them off until there's no more credit cards.
Part of the transition spending plan is, all right, how are we going to get rid of these things, these financial leeches, so that we can start taking that money and investing it in our future?
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll help clients do that, you know, create a plan for them and help them stick to it. You know, it's easy to create a plan and then it goes out the window next month or next week or in 3 months. Then what was the point of it? I think, you know, so we don't want to make it too overwhelming and intimidating for people. We want to make it comfortable, something that's in their comfort level that they feel like it's going to work for them. They don't feel restricted. So, yeah.
And once they get to that point where they're reviewing their finances regularly, they've got all that good stuff going, how do you allow for the urge to splurge occasionally, right? There's some people, I've heard it said that we all need to reward ourselves with a little frivolous spending here and there. How do you plan that in?
I think that, one way to do it is take the credit card and put it in a Ziploc baggie with water and put it in the freezer, so it's not as tempting for you. But then we have those numbers memorized in our head. Just, you have to accountable to yourself or be accountable to somebody else. If it's a couple, accountability to each other, if you want to grow together, is a good thing. And if you're a single person, maybe find a buddy or talk to us. We can help you be accountable.
So
you need accountability.
One thing you can do if you have addictive spending is sort of cut yourself off and keep that option there. But what if, I've heard it said that it's important to reward ourselves every now and then by feeling free to spend a little. So what I'm asking is, how do you do that in a way that isn't going to shock your partner or offset your spending plan? How can you plan in spontaneous self-reward is what I'm saying. I'm going to go to Robert Graham, my favorite shirt makers, and I'm going to spend a couple of $100 on a shirt just because I did something great and I deserve it. How do you plan that in without blowing up your spending plan or falling back into that place where you're cracking the ice on that credit card or whatever?
Good idea to put that into your spending plan. Have X amount of dollars that you feel like you can put away in a place where you're not going to touch it. It's not your emergency fund. It's not your 6-month fund, but it's part of your budget, your spending plan. You need to what if I land a great job or I land a good client or something, or I deserve, I feel like I want to treat myself, I deserve it. Well, I have $200 put away in this little fund that I've been saving for myself that I'm not telling anybody about. It's just for me to spoil myself with, or go out and, go to a spa, get a massage, do whatever, turns you on, that type of thing. So
I love that.
That's something we need to figure in.
Yeah, for the spending. I don't do financial planning, but something that I suggest to my clients as they're working through this is that usually both my clients are working. So they've got their separate income. They've got a joint account where a percentage of what they earn goes into, and out of the joint account goes, might go money for the stock market, money for food, money for the house. And then they've got separate individual accounts where they keep like their individual slush funds. So that's where you're going to spend money on hair and clothes and the little lifestyle things that keep you excited. And when they do it that way, they're not looking over each other's shoulders saying, if you have all your money in a joint account and you're doing that, it's a lot easier to go, what? You spent $60 at the salon? Like salon, by the way, that could be the hair salon for men. I'm not saying salon for women. It could be whatever. Or what? You went to Robert Graham and spent $200? What? Like if you have money set aside individually for that, then you're not looking over each other's shoulders. You have permission to spend that money on whatever you want. And there's a sense of individual freedom as well as unified joint freedom.
I love that. I always tell clients, you keep your own little separate checking accounts too for your own money, especially if you're both working. Even if you're not working outside the home, if someone is working, one of the partners is working inside the home, you keep your own little slush fund that you can keep for yourself. And then you have your joint account, which is, like I said before, for the fixed expenses. You put your vacation money in there. What are you going to plan? Your trips, all that stuff that you're working towards together, children's expenses, whatever that is. But
my grandmother had little envelopes that she put money in for everything, and she had one for herself. So this is your little envelope for yourself.
Exactly.
And we do work with couples now where we take them through this master plan program. They go through 12 areas of their life and they budget. That there are 6 areas are, how am I going to take care of myself? Because if you don't charge your own battery, if you're not at 100%, as an individual, if you're not resting enough, eating well, taking care of your emotional state, taking care of your intellectual state, taking care of your sense of spirituality or connection, whatever that means to you, your values, your principles, and your sense of purpose and mission. If you don't have those things lined up, it's a lot harder to show up for your partner, for your kids, for your job. So we take them through that, and it seems like what you're talking about, this spending plan, is a great way to make sure that you're taking care of all those areas of your life.
Things that we do just briefly is, on the money mindset part of it, we go back and we look at what are your earliest memories of money, whether it was from a parent, a grandparent, a godparent, whatever that might be, and how can you change that mindset? Maybe, you were treated like a victim, or maybe they might have been the martyr, or maybe it was someone that was foolish and had a gambling problem or another kind of spending problem, even a shopping problem, So we kind of look at that and see, where can we change your mindset around that, because that's what you were brought up with, but it's not necessarily the way that you want to continue to be. And you want to try to set a good example for the next generation by breaking those habits and creating new ones.
Sweet.
And that's one of the things we work with.
Sweet. I love that mindset work. Judith, how can people, well, I mean, besides people who are watching the video, people on the podcast can't see your website. How can people who find you, how do they find you? How do they engage your services?
So I'm on, my website is judithheft.com, www.judithhef as in Frank T.com. I can be reached there. You can find us there. There's a contact us form. Anybody can, we'd love to have you fill it out. Excuse me, I have a newsletter that goes out weekly. I blog weekly. I do a lot of videos. I'm starting my own podcast. Maybe you can be a guest on mine, Rich. It's going to be Mastering Your Financial Life. So I'm excited about that.
I'd love to help you with that in any way. We can talk about it after the show because it's
absolutely
a lot easier than anyone would think.
And then my next book is coming out in May, Mastering Your Financial Life Cycle. So we talk about every decade and what you're going to need to know, and offer some insight and experience there.
I love that. I love the forward thinking of it. And the question that I ask everyone when we get near the end of the show is, Judith, what is the legacy you want to leave behind? That's like, when, like at your funeral, what are they going to say around your casket or your ashes or whatever you choose to do there? It's a gruesome thought, sorry.
My passion has really always been helping people, and that's how I started this business, trying to help people. Like I said before, starting with the senior population, the 80-year-old plus, helping them. But now, of course, I help a lot of younger people too, because they really need to, they need help with the planning and, planning for their future and families. So yeah, that's really my passion. It's really helping people and, getting people, having people become more financially aware. So yeah, I don't know if they're going to say that at my funeral, but
I'm always amazed at how we don't teach kids, like not in elementary school or high school. We don't teach them financial literacy. Nobody taught me. Like I had to go find a book.
It's a mistake. I know. I find the same thing. There's some great children's money books out there that I recommended to people. In fact, there's one I'm going to put a plug for somebody else, Money Bunnies by Mike Michalowicz. And it's really good. It's for young kids, teaching them about money and philanthropy and saving.
Mike Michalowicz, the ultimate grandmother's envelope guy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Profit First. I love his stuff.
Use Profit First and recommend it to clients too. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
it changed my financial picture.
I use that system rigorously.
Changed me financially. Yeah, it's great. So I want, young people to understand it too. They really need to know when they're young what to do. So they're not waiting till they're in their 50s and 60s to figure this stuff out.
Well, that's great. And thank you so much for being on the show. This is really wonderful and informative, and I'm sure that it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you for having me, Rich. It's a pleasure. It's so nice to meet you, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
All right.